Today I'm going to show you an easy way to cook spaghetti squash in the truck. Hi everybody! Tonight I'm gonna make spaghetti squash for dinner, and I figured I would film it for you and show you how I make this on the truck. It's very easy, it's healthy for you, and it tastes really good. We really like it. Let's start with our ingredients, what we need to make this. First, you're gonna need a spaghetti squash. I've just got a small one this time. Sometimes you can find these, sometimes you can't. I guess it just depends on the season, but I've got kind of a small spaghetti squash. I'm gonna put bell pepper and onion. I've got my grass-fed beef, just a pound of that. I'm using jarred tomato sauce. I've got the tomato basil, and it's organic. This is Whole Foods brand. It's really, really good. And then I've got some seasonings, just some simple seasonings. Pepper, I'm gonna add a little Italian seasoning, some garlic powder, and some Himalayan pink salt. You can season this however you'd like. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cook our spaghetti squash. Now you can cook your spaghetti squash a number of ways. The easiest way I found for us on the truck is doing it in the microwave. I'm going to take the squash and I'm going to take a fork. I'm going to poke several holes into the squash, and this just allows the steam to vent out of the squash while it's cooking, because you do not want this to explode in your microwave. So I just kind of go around, do them randomly a few times around and up and down the squash. Once we've done that, we're gonna cook this in the microwave. We're gonna start at 15 minutes on high. After 15 minutes, you're going to check it. We're gonna feel how firm it is, if it's soft or firm. And then if we need to add time, we can. But our initial time is 15 minutes. So let's pop this in the microwave. And I've just got it on 2 paper plates, and that usually does fine. 15 minutes may be enough for this squash, just simply because it is a smaller squash. It's on the smaller side. So we're gonna get that cooking. I'm gonna let this cook for the entire 15 minutes. We'll check it and we'll go from there. What I'm gonna do while my spaghetti squash is cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and cut up my bell pepper. I've already got my onion diced from previously, so I don't have to do that. If I didn't have that already done, I would do that now too. So I'm just gonna use half of my bell pepper. All right, we have our peppers all diced up, so it's not a big amount, just a little bit. I'm just gonna go ahead and put some onion on here. We're gonna add this, saute this up before we brown our meat. So we've got everything pretty much ready to go. We're just gonna wait on that squash to finish cooking. So it's been 15 minutes, our microwave just beeped, and we are going to check this. So what we wanna do, ooh, you can hear it bubbling in there. We want to press on it, and we want it to be soft. We don't want it to be firm. We want it to be pretty soft. Now, feeling this, it's still a little firm, so I'm going to cook it a little bit longer. We want it a little bit softer than what it is, and be careful because it is very hot when you touch it. So we're gonna add 3 minutes and cook it for an additional 3 minutes. If you have to cook beyond the 15 minutes, you only wanna go in 3-minute increments, because you don't wanna overcook the squash. So I'm gonna add 3 minutes and cook it 3 additional minutes, and we'll see how it is then. So our additional 3 seconds has just ended, and I'm gonna check it again. And as you see, it's very, very hot. So this time I know it's gonna be even hotter than it was the first time I checked it. So I'm just gonna use a paper towel to kind of lessen the heat transfer to my hand. And that is actually pretty good. So I'm gonna grab this out, and be careful getting it out of your microwave. And there we go. So I'm gonna try to show you the softness of this. If Jason come in a little closer. If you see when I press, see how it's pressing in and indenting? Hopefully that shows on camera. That's how you want it. You want it soft, but not too mushy. So we want to let this sit and rest for at least 10 minutes before we cut into it to get our spaghetti squash out of it. And that's when I take the opportunity to go ahead and make my sauce while that's sitting. If it sits longer than 10 minutes, that's fine. You just need a minimum of at least 10 minutes to let it rest before you cut into it. So let's start with our sauce. First, let's get our saucepan, and we're gonna go ahead and plug this baby up. Alrighty, turn it on, and we're going to, let's set our temperature. I'm gonna start at 300. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna saute my peppers and onions first. And what I'm gonna saute them in, I'm gonna saute them in some beef tallow. Instead of using olive oil or butter to saute them in, beef tallow, it just has really good fats for you. The reason we like to use this, not only does it taste good, it gives what you're cooking a good flavor. It doesn't go rancid at high heat like how extra virgin olive oil can when you're cooking with it. Just use about a tablespoon, a little less than a tablespoon. I just kind of eyeball it. And we're gonna put that right in our pot there. We're gonna let that heat up. And this induction cooktop, it heats up really well and really fast. So let's let that get good and melted. And once that's good and melted, we're gonna add our peppers and onions. We're going to saute those. I'm going to turn that down to 250 just so it's not popping. One thing you want to be careful with if you are cooking with any type of tallow or lard is it does tend to pop a little more, especially if you have any watery vegetables. You know, these will probably had a little bit of moisture in them. So be careful that that doesn't pop up and splash on you. I cook these until not quite my onions are translucent because they're going to continue to cook once I add my ground beef. So I want to get them a little bit softer but not too soft before I add my ground beef. And you can make your spaghetti sauce however you want. I know a lot of people make homemade spaghetti sauce. You know, cooking on a truck, the easier the better, you know. So I just find the jarred sauces make it a lot easier, and they're really, these organic ones from Whole Foods are really good. They have a really good flavor. Alright, so I've cooked my veggies for about 5 minutes, so they're starting to get a little soft. You're seeing the little bit of color change on the onions. I just don't want them too smushy because, as I said, they're going to cook with the ground beef. So now we're going to add our ground beef to the veggies. I think I said this is a pound of ground beef that I'm going to be using. I'm just going to break that up, and you're just going to brown this with your veggies till it's nice and done. I am going to go ahead and add my seasonings. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I don't measure these out. I just do it to taste however you like yours seasoned. A little bit of garlic pepper. And sometimes I'll use fresh garlic, and then I'm using a little bit of Italian seasoning as well, since it is spaghetti. The little bit of Italian seasoning goes nice with it. So this is pretty much nice and brown and cooked all the way through. At this point, I'm going to turn my temperature down a bit here before I add my sauce. We don't want it to be boiling right as soon as I put that in. But at this point, a lot of you are probably going to want to drain the fat off of your meat. Especially if you're not using a real lean cut of hamburger meat. The meat we're using is an 85-15, but it's a grass-fed beef. If you can see, there's not really a lot of fat in there anyway, so I'm not even going to drain it. The extra fats that are in there are really good for you, actually. If you're eating a paleo diet or a keto diet, which is you're eating higher good fats and low carbs or no carbs, go ahead and add my spaghetti sauce. We're just going to let this heat up to where it is heated all the way through with our hamburger meat. So while that's heating up slowly, we're going to go ahead and cut open our spaghetti squash because it's been more than 10 minutes. I just cut it long ways, so where I'll have 2 halves. And it's still really, really hot, so there we go. Get that nice and cut in half. Now, as you see inside, if you've never seen a spaghetti squash before, it has a core of seeds, so you want to get all that core of seeds out of there. I just use a spoon to spoon those out, trying not to get any of the actual spaghetti squash. All you want to do is just get those seeds out. Now, I have noticed some spaghetti squashes have more seeds than others. It just depends on the squash and depends on the size, I think. That's just going to go in the garbage. Now, to get your spaghetti squash out, the easiest way to do it is just take a fork and you're just going to scrape the squash out of the shell. And as you do that, you'll see it kind of starts to look like spaghetti strands. So I usually will have a second bowl handy just so I can put the spaghetti squash in that as I scrape it out of the shell. And it's really, really easy, and it's soft, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to get that out of there. Alright, so I've got all of the squash, pretty much all of the squash out of the shells. You see there, they're empty, and this little squash gave us quite a bit. That's at least 2 meals for us. So that's what it looks like after you get it all the way out. Some squashes string up a little bit more like spaghetti, some don't. Some are a little more mushy, but that's okay. It all tastes the same whether it's stringy or not. So let's see how our sauce is doing. Jason's been helping me out kind of stirring that as I was getting the squash out. As our sauce is heated all the way through, so now it's just time to serve us up. A spaghetti squash, if you've never tried it, it's really good. It's kind of a little sweet. So with the tomato sauce and the spaghetti sauce as a whole, I think it's a really good combination. It tastes really, really good. Jason likes a lot of sauce on his, so I tend to load his up a little bit more than mine. And we're just gonna top this with some shredded Parmesan. Voila! There we go. Easy spaghetti squash on the truck. Quick and easy. There's several different ways you can make a spaghetti squash on the truck. For me, I found this to be the easiest. I hope you all enjoyed this video on spaghetti squash. If you want to see more cooking videos, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Thank you for watching and subscribing, and until our next video, peace, love, and expediting.